There comes a time in life when silence speaks louder than words, when expressions reveal more truth than statements, and when the heart understands what the ears may never hear. The art of reading people is not about manipulation. It is not about judgment. It is about awareness. It is about looking beyond what is said and learning to recognize what is left unsaid. When you master this art, you do not just become more intelligent in conversations, you become more compassionate in relationships. You begin to notice pain behind a smile, fear behind laughter, and strength behind silence. Reading people without words is not only a skill, it is a doorway into deeper human connection. Pay attention to the eyes. The eyes, they say, never lie. They hold emotions so raw, so unrefined, that even the most guarded person cannot completely mask them. A smile can be forced, a laugh can be faked, but the eyes always carry the weight of truth. When someone looks away while insisting they are fine, the eyes betray what the lips cannot admit. And when someone's eyes shine with warmth, you can feel their sincerity even in silence. Have you ever seen tears someone never allowed to fall? Those tears remain suspended in their gaze, heavy but unspoken, waiting for someone to notice. When you learn to pay attention to the eyes, you learn to recognize hidden battles. You begin to see fatigue in someone who claims they are strong, joy in someone who claims they are ordinary, and love in someone who never dared to say it aloud. The art of reading eyes is not about interrogation, it is about presence. It is about being attentive enough to notice when someone's sparkle dims, when their gaze seems distant, when their eyes are asking for comfort without forming a single word. Eyes are a mirror. They reflect what the soul is carrying, and only those who pause to notice can truly see. Sometimes the most powerful conversations happen without a single word spoken, just through a look that says, "I understand." When you give your attention to someone's eyes, you give them the gift of being seen. And in a world where so many feel invisible, that recognition can be healing. You do not need to be trained in psychology to see emotions through eyes. You only need to care enough to look beyond yourself. You only need to silence your distractions long enough to observe. The eyes are always telling a story. It is only a matter of whether you choose to listen. When you master this art, you stop being fooled by rehearsed words. You learn to detect sincerity, to notice contradictions, and most importantly, to connect deeply. You learn that some truths are written not on paper, not in sound, but in the unguarded moments of someone's gaze. And the beauty of this is that once you start noticing, you cannot unsee it. You begin to carry with you an awareness that allows you to understand people not for what they say, but for who they are in silence. Listen to the silence. There is a language in silence that few take time to understand. We live in a world where noise dominates, where people rush to fill every pause with chatter. Yet in those pauses lies the most authentic communication. Silence is not absence, it is presence in its purest form. When someone goes quiet, it does not always mean indifference. Sometimes it is the loudest expression of pain. Sometimes silence is someone's way of saying they are too exhausted to explain. Sometimes it is a scream buried so deep that it can only exist in stillness. If you learn to listen to silence, you will understand far more than words could reveal. Notice how people use silence differently. Some retreat into it as a shield. Others use it as a form of strength. Some keep silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they fear no one will truly listen. Silence is the most underrated language, yet it is the most universal. To listen to silence is to slow down enough to sense the unspoken. It is to lean into the pauses and hear the weight of what was not said. In those gaps, you may find sorrow, you may find hesitation, or you may find resilience. Listening to silence teaches you patience because you realize that not every truth needs to be rushed into words. Have you noticed that in moments of deep connection, silence feels comfortable? It feels like understanding without explanation. But in moments of disconnect, silence feels suffocating. It is not the silence itself that matters, it is what the silence carries. When you embrace silence as communication, you begin to respect it. You stop demanding constant explanations, and you start allowing people to exist without pressure. In doing so, you create space for authenticity. You create space for healing. And as you learn to hear the language of silence, you will discover that sometimes the most important things in life are not shouted, not spoken, not even whispered, they are felt in the quiet. Observe body language. The body speaks long before the mouth does. Every gesture, every movement, every posture holds a story waiting to be told. You do not need words to recognize discomfort when someone crosses their arms tightly or to see enthusiasm when someone leans forward with eagerness. The body rarely lies, and if you pay attention, you can learn to read it with clarity. People reveal themselves in the subtlest ways. A tap of the foot can show impatience. A clenched fist can reveal suppressed anger. A slouched back can expose the weight of invisible burdens. These movements are not random, they are reflections of the inner world spilling out. When you begin observing body language, you start recognizing emotions that words often conceal. You notice when someone forces a smile but their shoulders slump with defeat. You notice when laughter echoes but hands tremble with anxiety. You realize that the truth often whispers through the body more honestly than the voice. This awareness is not meant for judgment, it is meant for compassion. By observing body language, you do not expose weakness, you honor humanity. You acknowledge emotions that someone might not have the courage to articulate. You say, without words, I see you. Imagine how many people walk through life wishing to be understood without having to explain themselves. When you observe body language, you give them that gift. You give them the dignity of being understood without interrogation. You become a mirror reflecting their unspoken truth. But this requires presence. You cannot read body language if you are too busy with distractions. You must slow down. You must pay attention. And you must care enough to see what others overlook. And once you develop this awareness, you will realize that words are only one dimension of communication. The body paints an entire canvas. And if you learn to observe it, you step into a deeper understanding of human connection. Notice the energy they carry. Every human being carries an energy, and you feel it before you even hear their voice. Some people enter a room and uplift everyone around them without saying a word. Others enter and bring a heaviness that weighs down the atmosphere, even if they smile politely. This energy is not imagined, it is the invisible truth people carry with them. Energy is communication beyond language. It reveals what people are feeling deep within. You can sense when someone is genuinely happy because their presence feels light, it feels warm. And you can sense when someone is struggling internally, even if they laugh out loud because their presence feels heavy. Have you ever walked away from someone feeling drained, even though the conversation was ordinary? Or have you left someone's presence feeling inspired, though they barely spoke? That is the power of energy. It tells you more than words ever could. To notice energy is to become sensitive, not suspicious. It is to understand that people's inner battles and inner peace are communicated through their presence. When you learn to notice energy, you begin to support others better. You sense when they need encouragement, when they need space, and when they simply need someone to stay by their side. Energy does not lie. Words can cover up truths, but energy reveals them. Some carry storms inside them, some carry sunshine, and some carry both. When you learn to notice energy, you begin to navigate relationships with wisdom. This awareness makes you more intentional. You start choosing who to surround yourself with, not based only on their words, but on how their presence makes you feel. You also become more mindful of the energy you carry into other people's lives. And the more you develop this sensitivity, the more you realize that human connection is less about what is spoken and more about what is felt. It is about presence, about vibration, about resonance, the things that cannot be faked. Trust your intuition. There is a voice inside you that does not shout, does not argue, does not demand. It whispers. That whisper is your intuition. and it is one of the most powerful tools you have for reading people without words. Intuition is perception sharpened by empathy, and it often knows the truth long before your mind does. Have you ever met someone and instantly felt something was off, even though they said all the right things? Or have you ever felt safe with someone immediately, without needing long explanations? That is your intuition guiding you. It is not paranoia, it is awareness beyond logic. Trusting your intuition means trusting that your spirit recognizes signals that your mind cannot always process. It is not about being suspicious, it is about being sensitive enough to feel the energy behind the words, the emotion behind the silence, the truth behind the performance. Most of us ignore intuition because we are taught to rely only on facts. But intuition is a fact of the heart. It is a wisdom cultivated by experiences, by empathy, by connection. It knows when someone is genuine, and it knows when something is wrong, even if there is no evidence yet. When you begin to trust this inner guide, you stop doubting yourself so much. You stop needing constant explanations from others. You begin to honor your own ability to sense, to feel, to know without words. And in doing so, you protect yourself from dishonesty while moving closer to authenticity. Intuition is not a replacement for logic, it is a companion to it. Logic explains, but intuition feels. Together, they guide you to deeper understanding. Without intuition, communication is shallow. With it, you access the depth of human truth. And once you learn to trust it, you will realize that intuition was never about fear. It was always about connection. It was always about guiding you toward honesty, compassion, and authenticity in relationships without the need for words. In the end, to master the art of reading people without saying a word is to master the art of empathy. It is not about decoding others to control them. It is about seeing them for who they are when they are too tired to speak. It is about recognizing the stories carried in their eyes, the emotions hidden in their silence, the truth revealed in their body language, the weight of the energy they bring, and the whispers of intuition guiding you. When you live with this awareness, you no longer get lost in shallow conversations. You connect deeper. You understand without being told. You see without being shown. And in this depth, you find the truest form of human connection, one that transcends words and reaches the soul.